Welcome back to the On Business podcast. With tons of experience in different industries in Canada and the United States, Danielle and Brandon give you real talk, no nonsense expert advice about running and owning successful companies. Here's your host, Danielle Jenkins and Brandon White.
We got to get you an arm. Hey, Danielle, what's happening?
Hey, Brandon. I am in my empty office right now. Hopefully by next week's recording, I will actually have my office back to normal, but we are in our new home. We are back and forth a little bit right now, but we are in our new home officially. And we're very excited about getting it to look like our home, because right now it's just a big empty box. How are you?
I'm never better. You had a crazy week, which I think you should fill people in on, which will lead to our topic today. But for listeners, Danielle got on this morning and said, "How do I sound?" And she knew that I was going to say that she sounded like she was in an empty house. And she said, "How are we going to fix that?" And I said, "You're going to put things on your walls and put carpet on." And she only rolled her eyes 3 times, but I'm going to give her a pass. I'm going to give her a pass today because of the crazy last week that you have had. So what happened?
So for those of you who follow me on my personal Instagram would know that about a week ago, our office location in Orangeville burned down. So at 12 o'clock midnight on Wednesday last week, basically I got a call from a friend of mine who's on the fire department, and he said, "Hey, listen, is this your office location address?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "We've just dispatched an aerial. The building is on fire." And I thought, oh my God. So where our office and storage and where our location is, above us, we have residential units. So there's 4 or 5 apartments above there. So I was thinking maybe, there was a small grease fire. There was a small fire of some kind that maybe would have been resolved with a small amount of water. So as soon as I got off the phone with my friend, I pulled up my security cameras on inside of my office. And all I could see from that point on at about 12:30 on the Wednesday night was water dripping through the ceiling. And I was thinking, okay, maybe tomorrow we'll just have a little bit of water damage, nothing that insurance won't need to get involved in, just heavy cleanup, maybe some water, maybe some ceiling tiles replaced. By 1:30 a.m., so about an hour later, I had literally watched the ceiling cave in on our unit, and then my cameras cut out. So at that point, somebody's bathroom floor came through the ceiling, obviously from the water and the smoke and the fire, everything just collapsed. And then, the cameras cut out at 1:30. So I didn't see what happened then. And then at 5 a.m., they were still putting it out. So we had 5 departments putting out the building fire. So that was that. That's what we've been dealing with. It's been crazy since then, Brandon. We've had so much to do with the insurance, phone calls. Thank God we had insurance or have insurance. And it wasn't just us. I mean, there's so many, the residential units above us are completely gone. They were burnt down, with nothing left. My unit underneath, as well as 2 other units, are completely written off. And then there were other businesses on the other side of the big building. It's almost like a mall in a weird way, like an office mall. And then a bunch of other ones on the other side, they were heavily smoke damaged. So they're getting remediated and restored as soon as possible so they can get back to business, but our side will be completely demolished. So it's been quite an eventful week. But
no one died though, right?
No, nobody died. Everybody got out safe, thank God. Unfortunately, one of the apartments, they lost 2 of their cats, which is absolutely awful. But thankfully, everybody got out and everybody was safe.
Why don't you share with people how it happened?
So that's even crazy. I'm already getting shivers. So there was, again, residential units above. There was a guy on the street that night at about 11 o'clock at night. And he was throwing rocks and bricks at one of the units on the very front of the street where their windows face the street. So obviously there was an altercation. There was some probably not nice words said. And the guy that was throwing rocks on the street decided to go on top of the building, which, yes, there is roof access because of the type of building it is. And somebody across the street and the person in one of the other residential units saw somebody on the roof about 20 minutes before the fire started. And this guy literally burnt the building down. He went up on the roof and started a fire. Because he was mad that one of the residential units asked them to stop throwing bricks at the building. So, that is a whole other issue on its own. There definitely needs to be some kind of help for people that are going through things that feel the necessary need to burn a building down when they're frustrated.
That's arson.
It is, yeah. So the guy is in custody now. He is charged with arson and 6 accounts of attempted murder.
It's just crazy. I mean, who the hell does that? It's nuts.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
and I mean, look
sorry
at
it happened. Actually, when you text me, and for listeners, we do have shows in the can, so to speak. So last week's wasn't necessarily taped last week, but when you text me, I was like, fire. And then I saw your picture. I mean, it's just the whole top of that. It's basically that type of development where you have stores on the bottom, and then I guess you have units on top, and maybe some of them are offices. But yeah, it looked like it was totally demolished. It's sort of near downtown, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right off of the main street of Orangeville. And for those of you who have been following us before, the reason we picked Orangeville is because it's so central to all of our major areas that we service. And it was a perfect location. It was my favorite office location ever. We had great neighbors, lots of other businesses in the area, and it was great. But now,
well, they'll rebuild it.
The building manager or the building owner, because they have to take that whole right side off again. For anybody who saw my Instagram, they're going to turn that into parking lots because they have to demolish it. There's no restoration. So
why
they're going to take that
demolish it and rebuild it?
I mean, they may, but I think they've decided that they're not going to, and they're just going to keep the other side of the building.
So are you going to move your office?
Yes.
Obviously. That's a blinding flash of the obvious.
Right now,
yes, you are going to move your office.
Well, right now we don't have one, which causes its own challenges. We have tons of meetings, staff meetings, client meetings, people who purchase the product, our staff that have to come and pick up their product and equipment for their day-to-day operations, getting all of our new contracts sorted. Everything happens at that location. So it's definitely challenging. I mean, as soon as I got that call and my cameras cut out at 1:30 a.m. on that Wednesday night, I kind of went into survival mode. I emailed our lab right away, who formulate our products. And I said, listen, we've had a fire. We've lost everything. Because at that point, once I saw the ceiling cave in, I kind of knew everything was gone, And so I emailed them and said, we're going to need a new order ASAP. And is there any way that you guys can hold it at your location until we can get a new one? So I dealt with that right away. Who else? Oh, I emailed all of our staff, every single person in the company, because I did not want them to have to come, think that were coming to work the next day. And then it'd be a shock and there was just so much. And I just didn't want them to have to feel that energy or that kind of negative start to their day. So I sent it to every single person within the company and said, the office location is gone. Between the managers and myself, we're going to be hands-on to try and get everything to you guys so we can be as normal as possible. So luckily in our residential division, a lot of our staff keep their products and equipment for their day-to-day operations with them. It's just kind of the restocking and the replenishing that was an issue. So all of our managers have been absolutely amazing. They've been so hands-on, and we've kind of been doing drive around delivery, which again causes its own challenges, but it's just to kind of get by right now until we get another location. But of course, there's other businesses that were affected too. So everybody is looking for locations, and there's not much available. I mean, we had such a perfect spot there. So we're just going to keep trying to find a new space, and go from there.
Well, it's terrible. It's unbelievable. I was just looking at a picture I remember you posting. Well, good news is nobody was killed. You can rebuild an office. You can rebuild supplies.
Mm-hmm.
It leads us into today's topic, which is insurance for your business.
Yeah.
We could basically just say you need insurance for your business. And if you don't get insurance for your business, you're crazy. But it is as simple as that, but it is a little more complicated in the types of insurance and what you're going to do. And you and I have had experience with a lot of things. You have people, if you have an office, that's an insurance. If you are in the service business and working on other sites, whether that's public or consumer based and or commercial, like a office building or condos or something like that, even building homes is different. And then products, owning products and selling products to someone, consumers, has a whole nother thing. So I used to think it was a racket, this whole insurance thing. I actually don't think it's a racket, but I do think that, and we'll talk about it, you have to read those documents. And I love salespeople. It's great. But they are inherently, but they are incentivized by closing deals. I'm not saying they don't want you to be covered. Of course, they're in the business. They want you to be covered. In fact, they want you to get as much insurance as you want. My experience is that you need to ask a lot of questions and you need to read the fine print, because they'll exclude things. And then you'll find yourself in this situation where you thought you had insurance, but you only hadn't, maybe you didn't have that insurance, or you had $500 to replace inventory when you have $29,000 or $100,000 or $1 million in inventory. And then there's replacement insurance and I don't know I don't know all the exact words. Maybe someday we'll have a insurance person on, but there's basically the idea that you can get your computer replaced at full value, which is replacement insurance, or they compensate you for the computer. I'm using that example that you have, which I never liked that insurance, because then they say, oh, well, Danielle, your computer is 2 years old, so it's really only worth $500, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, but to get a new computer is $3,000 for the one I have. So so you basically wind up going out of pocket. So it's just really important to get the right insurance. I'll let you go into it, since you actually can maybe talk about what insurance you had and what is actually kicking in, and if you have any gaps.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was super important to talk about this, obviously in sight of everything that I've went through with our commercial location. But on top of that, one thing that I really see a lot of are a lot of service-based companies or businesses coming to me, for advice or questions when it comes to either setting up their business or things that are going to take their business to the next level, or maybe elevate the level of standard they have. And a lot of them don't have that just general liability insurance. So putting the commercial location aside, I think for any kind of small business, whether it's service, professional services, or anything like that, number one is general liability. Our general liability is $10 million. So that covers anything from people getting hurt, any damage. So for us, for example, being in the cleaning industry, if we go into a location, accidentally turn on an oven while we're cleaning it, and the building burns down, that will be covered under our general liability insurance. If we go into a commercial space and we use the wrong product on their gorgeous bamboo hardwood floors, then they're going to be replaced. So just general liability insurance is my number one recommendation for anybody who is any kind of business owner, company owner, even for themselves. Just have general liability insurance and different limits as well. I mean, we used to be 2 million. Then we were 5 million. Now we're 10 million. Only because we have so many locations and some of them are upwards of $5 to $10 million worth. So if anything were to happen, and the chances are very slim that we're going to burn down a giant $10 million condo building, but just in case, we have the insurance to do so. So general liability is number one that I think that I would recommend for anybody. And I tell everybody who comes to me for any kind of advice, definitely have that. And there are tons and tons and tons of different types of insurance, Brandon, like you were going through a few there, and there are tons. So I think maybe one day we will have an insurance person on here to talk, or maybe people can write in about their questions with what kind of insurance they should have. But for service, like again, that general liability, and then the commercial property insurance. So if you have an office location or even just a storage for all of your equipment and supplies, like a garage, you know, say you own a grass cutting company or business and you need to store your lawnmowers, you definitely need to have commercial liability insurance. So for us, thank God, like literally thank God, we had the right insurance policy and everything for what happened. It's a long time. It's a lot of legwork. It's a lot of back and forth with the insurance people. However, it is so worth it because it covers literally everything. So in our policy for our commercial location, we have everything from if somebody comes in and falls, you know, say for example, we spilt water and somebody came in to buy product from our office location and they fell and broke their leg, we would cover that. That would be under our commercial location insurance. Anything from water damage, fire damage, weather damage, you know, the roof caves in because of the amount of snow we get up here, that's covered. And that's another important thing to always ask your insurance people, because about 10 years ago, my mom's house flooded, the basement flooded. There was about 2 feet of water in the basement, and her policy did not have what they call an act of God policy or clause in there. So anything that comes from weather wouldn't have been covered. So she didn't get covered from that flood. So that was something to definitely make sure that we had in our policy. I'm not sure if that's the same in the States, but it's definitely important to talk about if you're up here in Canada, because anything can happen with the crazy weather we have here, anything from crazy rainstorms to the heat and to the snow. You never know what could happen. So that's super important to have. So with our policy covered all inventory of our products and equipment loss. So tools and equipment were covered. Our products are going to be covered. Loss of business as well. So because we were able to give a projection of what we would have made in the commercial division from not being able to start those contracts because of losing the equipment in the office, and also loss of sales in the product line from people coming in. So they average it over, you know, a certain amount of time. We would also get that as well. So that's called loss of business insurance. Sometimes that can be just an insurance policy on its own, or you can add it into your existing policy. So for our commercial insurance, commercial liability insurance policy, there's all these additional things that you can add on. And these are super important things to think about and talk to your broker or your insurance company about, because like I said, sometimes you can have separate policies. Sometimes they can be add-ons to the policy you already have. But number one is also get commercial liability insurance, even just the bare minimum for anything like this. At least it would cover, you know, to get another location, you know, first and last lease or something to get another location if you don't want to get the rest. But I do highly recommend getting something that covers any potential equipment, products, supplies, computers, everything in there. When the insurance adjuster was calling me and asking me all the questions of everything that was in there, I actually can't believe how much I forgot. I forgot that I had, probably $300 worth of office supplies like pens and paper. So that's something that needs to be noted. The office phones. You think I even remembered the phones? And I don't know why, but I didn't. I was thinking just products and equipment. And I was like, whatever, the rest is whatever. But even down to the upgrades that we did in there. So when we obtained that, we had to put walls up, we had to paint, we had to put new flooring. So all of those things are also covered because we increased the value of that unit. So the insurance would cover us for that. So I think we did $4,000 worth of upgrades that they would cover. Our kitchenette, the fridge. So there's so many things that, I didn't even realize that would be covered. That will be. So it's very important to have that commercial liability insurance, not only to protect you if case somebody comes in off the public and falls, but also, God forbid, you have a fire or a flood, because never, ever, ever in a million years would I have thought that I would have been victim to losing my office and commercial space to a fire. And that's the thing. Everybody always knows somebody who's went through it, but nobody really knows until you go through it yourself. And yes, we've had insurance, which has been great to have, but it still turns everything upside down. So having insurance has just made that a little bit better.
Well, thank God you had it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we would be out probably just with equipment and supplies alone, probably about 300,000 that we had in there with equipment, supplies, and just day-to-day stuff, masks, gloves, uniforms, again, stuff that you don't think about.
Yeah. I think you covered a lot of it. A few notes that I made that I can talk about what I do. Even if you're a private company, I would get D&O insurance, director and officer insurance, mainly because that way, if someone goes after you, or some people have board of directors and other people on there, but if someone's really trying to go after you, they try to go end around and go to you individually. And then I carry for Yvette and I another general policy for us personally, mainly because someone then tries to go around again, then you're covered. And that sounds crazy, but it's not crazy. It's not crazy when someone falls. It's not crazy if someone was in that fire and then their family, and you're like, oh, well, they're such a nice person. They would never do that. They would understand this was an accident. Some of their family members won't. And they'll say, XYZ, they're a business owner, they're rich, they can afford this. And then all of a sudden you find yourself with a legal bill of $100,000, which is pretty easy to run up when you're trying to fight that sort of stuff. So D&O insurance, and then a general policy for yourself, which then, even if you don't own your home, you should have some sort of homeowner's insurance or renter's insurance. And I know it sounds like a lot of insurance. The truth is some of the insurance really isn't expensive relative to revenue. So, I mean, it's expensive to revenue when you're starting out and you're like, man, this is thousands of dollars of insurance. I mean, in some cases, especially in the construction world or security world, we've had insurance policies that run six figures, but these are like high use cases where data could be breached or something along those lines. And some things just they won't cover. But if you can get it, it's worth it. And especially when you're smaller, because something like that can put you out of business. If you're selling that product and someone says, my kid drank it, and you're like, it says right there on the label, don't drink the cleaner, and they do it. It's not about being right or wrong always. It's really about defending yourself against the suit that could be in your favor or not. But in the meantime, over that time, you're taking money out of your cash flow. So
totally,
I think it's been worth it. And I've had to get insurance for our company that has that is a service company and does consulting, even for when we work for the client and rent cars. because they want that to effectively be bonded. So, and I think we carry a few $1 million for that sort of thing. So there's all these things that you just don't think about. You think it's not a big deal, but when things get legal, it gets to be a big deal. And I think the other thing that I just emphasize, and maybe you could talk about it. I had a note here about because you have a fleet of vehicles, I think, or some vehicles.
We have some, yeah.
But read the policy. It is extremely painful to read the policy, but read the policy because, like in your mom's case, acts of God. Sometimes it covers some acts of God, but you mentioned snow. You may, in that area of Orangeville, because of the heavy snow, insurance policies might carve out and say no snow damage from roof, because they're just not going to insure against it from the 50-year or 25-year storm that's unpredictable, that is predictable enough that they know it could come. And then you still can get insurance on top of that. It'd just be expensive. Here in California, earthquake insurance is very expensive. You can get earthquake insurance, but we have earthquakes. Knock on wood. We don't have any more big ones soon. But so you can get insurance, and then you just have to do the math. Sometimes it's just worth, here in California, the property is worth more than the home. So unless the property disappears in the sinkhole, then it might make more sense to insure yourself on the structure. So what about vehicle stuff that you have? Because I know that we started off with the fire and whatnot, but if you have a fleet of vehicles and you have people driving those vehicles, you got a whole other slate of liability.
Yeah. So again, I don't know if it's different in the States or compared to Canada or what the differences are. But in Canada, they really do separate everything personally and commercial wise. So let's just look at my vehicle, for example. And I just had this conversation with my insurance broker. So my car is under my corporation just for accounting purposes. So even though that is only me, I am the owner, and I have my own slew of insurances, that vehicle, because it's under the company and technically because we have employees, it has to be insured for employees to technically drive it. It has to be insured for any kind of tool, equipment, and product transportation. Even though I've told them I don't transport, equipment, it's not big enough to put equipment in there because it's under the company name, it still technically could. And they want to protect their client, i.e. me, and also themselves. I mean, if there could be also an issue where if the off chance I throw an equipment or piece of equipment in the back of my car, I get into an accident, that equipment flies out and kills somebody, that insurance company is also then going to go after them. So it can be a huge issue. So, there's certain things that are very important when you have vehicles in your commercial your company, because you have to protect yourself, you have to protect the company, you also have to protect your employees and anybody else on the road. Obviously that's what insurance is for, but there's so much more when it comes to your employees. So that racks up the bill. I'm going to be completely honest. When you have a bunch of different people on your insurance policy that could potentially drive the vehicles, because then they have to check driving records. And if all of your staff are angel drivers, but then you have one driver who has 10 speeding tickets or 3 accidents on their record, that could then put up the insurance policy. So it's definitely something to think about when you are looking at getting vehicles or a fleet. I know Molly Maid, the other cleaning company that's very well known, they, I believe, only let the, managers, so their managers are the only drivers of vehicles. So unless you are a management position, you can't have a vehicle. So they have a loophole in their insurance policy where it's only specific people. And that's something that you can do. Again, you have to work with your broker. Just like we say all the time, you need to have a good, solid support system of people, lawyers, brokers, all those people to support your business. And definitely having an insurance broker is very important. And I knew that before this, but now I'm even more on top of my insurances since this fire has happened, because, now I'm telling my insurance broker absolutely every single thing that our company does on a day-to-day basis to make sure we have absolutely anything and everything and any possible thing happen, and that it's covered and insured. So that's just a little bit about commercial insurance or commercial auto insurance. I think every case is different. Every industry, every company, every business is different. So definitely, again, you need to talk to them. And when they ask you questions like, do you do this? Even if you do it once a month and you think it's not a big deal, say you do and get covered, because I'm telling you now, the one time that you do, that's when you're going to need the insurance. And that's something that I've learned with all of this, because there was one question I'm trying to remember that the insurance broker asked me when I was doing the claim for the fire. And I thought to myself, oh my God, like I would have never put that in my policy, but this one time I did. And thank God I did, because I was going to then cover about $30,000 that I lost in the fire. I'll have to find it and maybe pull reference to it in a bit, but there was some clause in there that I was like, oh my God, thank God I did. So it's definitely worth it. I mean, for some projects, they have, like you said, 6-figure insurance policies. I think we pay $900 Canadian a month for our commercial property insurance. So yes, is it almost $12,000 a year? But look at what I just lost in the fire, close to $300,000-400,000. So it's very much worth it.
And I was going to ask you I was going to try to convert Canadian to U.S. because inflation changes every day here now. That's only a half joke. How much, when you said the auto insurance it can rack up or add up, do you have an idea what that means? I mean, you have how many? I
have 4 under our policy.
Is that covered in the $900 a month, or
it's just the $900 Canadian, which is $687 US today, right now, just so you know. That's just my commercial property insurance. My auto insurance, I think, and I can pull up, I'll go into the thing, but I believe it's just shy of $800 a month. So not bad, but all of us have clean driving records, everybody who's on there. But there are people who have auto insurance policies that can be anywhere to $20,000 a month. Like limo companies and things like that can definitely be more because they're transporting people. I know a girlfriend of mine, she looked at doing a transporting of elderly drugs and prescriptions. Great business plan, great idea. And then she was looking at from that to transporting seniors who can't drive to their, daily activities, their bingo or whatever it may be. And her insurance was going to be something like $21,000 a month, which is absolutely astronomical. And that's one vehicle and her driving, but because you're transporting people. So if you're thinking of having a business when it comes to predominantly relying on vehicles and other people driving, like taxi or anything like that, really, really, really look into it, because your insurance can literally kill you.
And the other thing, just as a workaround, because that basically makes her business undoable. I mean, you do the math in your head, unless you get the scale really quickly. You could also ask and have an agreement with the other business that those people are transporting. I'm just breaking that one down so that she could have a business and basically say, hey, home, whatever, we're community, I'm going to transport your people, but you're going to carry the insurance and we're going to have an agreement. I'm only offering that to listeners to say that at first glance, you say, well, that business is dead, but you can go in and try to negotiate this stuff and then get yourself bonded with your insurance with the idea that you have an agreement where they've covered their people and taken liability, and then your insurance could go down. You're still going to carry some insurance, but you could lower it from $21,000.
Oh, yeah. It's insane. And then just another thing, just off the top of my head, thinking about people like lawyers, accountants, professional services. There's also an insurance here, and probably in the States too, that's literally like professional service liability. And so that's for, again, let's just use accountants, for example. If there were some kind of issue that you did wrong and cost my business $300,000 because of their screw up, and I then had to go to court with them to fight that because I overpaid the government $300,000, whatever it may be, that would cover the accountant's legal fees and things like that. There's, lawyers, I know they have stuff. Sergo, my other half, through his company, being a mortgage broker, he has what's called errors and omissions. So if something was to go wrong in a mortgage deal, his legal fees are covered up to, I think, $150,000. And again, that's quite expensive. I mean, I know Sergo, I think, pays close to $1,000 a month for errors and omissions, but anything could go wrong. Anybody could sue you in a situation like that, especially when you're dealing with professional services, numbers, and money. And again, like you said, right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that people will try to sue you. And I know in the States, like, you guys have an insane legal system when it comes to people getting sued. Canada's not as crazy as the States, but we definitely need to have insurance. But when it comes to, again, being sued and things like that, I know the States is hardcore.
In California, it's terrible. I think everybody sues everybody. It's just terrible. I serve on a committee here in Half Moon Bay, of all things, called a Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee, and we advise the city council. And I just got involved because I ride my bike all the time, obviously, and I do have a good pulse. And in general, our town is very friendly to walking and bicycle. It's not a secret that California is, in general, very environmentally conscious, health conscious, yada yada. I mean, we just outlawed gasoline cars in 2035, which you think about is sort of wild. But God, I lost my train of thought last night.
You're on the committee.
Yeah, I told you I was up really late last night. I'm too old to be up at 11:45 at night. I'm on the committee, and I forget what we were talking about, but anyway, it'll come back to me at some point today after I had 2 cups of caffeine, which would break my rule. But
no, we were talking about people suing people like crazy and how California is crazy.
Suing people, yeah, that's right. So we were talking about a project to get a bike path put up, and we need these improvements in downtown Half Moon Bay. So they bid the job, and then someone's suing the town or whatever. I mean, that just came to mind because it was in last night's meeting. But California is just awful about it. The United States, in general, it's hard to make generalizations about everything. But the bottom line is if someone sees an opportunity to get some free money or believes in their mind that they're entitled to it because of what happened as a result of you, it's just really hard. Now you're in this defense mode, and whether it's United States, Canada, or some other place, the legal system and lawyers are incentivized to keep the lawsuit going. Mm-hmm. They're not incentivized to stop their billing. I'm not saying that they're bad people, I'm just saying let's just look at the fundamental business. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're incentivized to bill by the hour. Some bill on the case basis, which would change the incentive, which I might argue is a better business model if you engage one. But anyway, it just perpetuates itself, and sometimes it's legit. Mm-hmm. If somebody gets in a car accident and your neck's never right again, what amount of money, let's just be honest, what amount of money is going to compensate you for living a life that way forever, at least in this lifetime, whatever you believe or wherever you go? I sort of feel that way, but in some cases people take advantage of it. So unfortunately, the way the whole system works, it's sort of self-perpetuating. Like my friend John would say, it's a self-licking ice cream cone. Mm-hmm. So it just the lawyers make the insurance happen. The insurance need to defend against the legal system, and it's like whirlwind. And then we're in the middle of it all, financing this extravagant thing. But insurance is there for when you need it. In your case, look, that loss of business rider that you had is huge, because that would cut into your cash flow.
Totally.
And I mean, forget your P&L. Profit is an accounting statement. I mean, P&L, profit and loss statement, is an accounting exercise that can be creative. It's all about your cash flow.
Yeah.
And having that loss of business, I think I'm glad you brought that up, because restaurants usually carry that a lot of the time, especially with COVID, although I can't imagine now what the insurance is like because of COVID, and it can shut things down. But I think loss of business is important, because then you got to pay payroll and you don't have income.
Or just like a small business. And I can use this as a prime example. Our lovely friends just around the corner where our office is, they run a karate school. So it's a husband and wife team. They are day in, day out, 7 days a week. They teach like black belt karate. They're amazing. And so during the summer, they've done kids camps, because we're on summer break here for the kids. So kids camps, they do adult camps, things like that. And so, they work hard every day, and they take their income from that, their only source of income, and they pay their mortgage with that. So we were chatting the other day when I had to go into the one side of the building, and we were chatting, and I said, we're very grateful that, for the most part, our residential division and our already existing commercial contracts can continue. It's a struggle, but we can continue. We can still pull in income. However, we've lost the income from the product sales. We've also lost the income of our new commercial projects that were supposed to start last week, and now they have to be pushed a few weeks. So, I mean, that's sometimes upwards of $20,000 to $25,000 a month that we would have gained starting last week that we've had to push. So that's loss of income. So luckily we had that. However, I was chatting with the lovely karate people, and I mean, their building, their unit didn't get burnt down, but their unit is so heavily smoke damaged that now it has to be restored. It has to be smoke remediated, all of these things. They can't have camps. They can't have people in there until all of that is done. So they are out thousands because they can't work. And sometimes, like, I was thinking to myself, I'm kind of, and this is almost a morbid thing to say in a weird way, but I'm kind of glad our unit is a complete loss so it can get, demolished and we can move on and we get our insurance payout. Where these poor people, they now have a unit that they can't look for elsewhere because they have a unit. So their insurance isn't going to help them pay for a new unit. Yes, it's going to cover the remediation and stuff, but how long is that going to take that they're out of income? So thankfully they have loss of business insurance because it's just a husband and wife team. They don't have employees that can make them money or that they have another location that they can make money. They can't do these karate camps in the middle of a field at the park, so they are out thousands until they can get back into their unit, which is really sad. So thank God that they also have loss of business insurance.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
If you are listening and you get the idea that we're harping on insurance, we are. It's one of those things. It's like something happens to you health-wise and all of a sudden the rest of your life has changed because you had that event. Until you have that event, it's not as pronounced. But insurance stuff for business happens all the time, and you are just, I don't think you and I, Danielle, are scaring anyone, but the fact of the matter is you're putting your personal wealth at risk if you don't carry the insurance.
Totally.
And that's just the facts. And you just don't want to do that. And most people are good humans out there. Sometimes they're not, and they go after money. And sometimes something like happens with you where, I mean, it does involve a nut, but it's completely devastating, and it's all going to come into play. So I don't think I have any resources. I just say, talk to your broker. And when you talk to your insurance broker, make sure you read and ask all the questions. Don't be intimidated because they're trying to get you to sign or something. basically ask the questions, because if you sign that and you carry it and you didn't get a rider, or there's an omission, or not an omission, or something's carved out because of something and you don't understand it, and then something happens and you think you had it, I can tell you from having been in that situation, it's like, it's not only disappointing, it's painful physically.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Physically painful to experience that. So
yeah,
everybody listening, make sure that you get insurance. You just get a general policy to start. At least that will help you, and then dig in.
Yeah. And just my 3 little tips before we get off here, Brandon. Number 1, obviously have insurance. Number 2, I know it can be hard for small businesses, especially startups, to have the right amount of insurance. But guys, 1, it's a tax write-off for sure. 2, honestly, it will save your butt. And don't cheap out on your limits. For, the beginning of this, when I said we started with 2 million, then we went to 5 million, then we went to 10 million, we did that because of the growth of the company. And so if, God forbid anything were to happen like this, but with one of our clients' buildings and it was our fault and we were only covered for 2 million, but the unit or the location was worth 8 million, at the end of the day, I'm now bankrupt because I don't have another $6 million sitting there, or I'm going to have to sell off my properties, or, God forbid, who knows what could happen, but it would be a nightmare. So for the extra, sometimes $50, $100, or even $200, it's definitely worth to put up your values and your limits. And then my third point, having insurance is actually very appealing to your customers. So not only on a personal protection or a business protection idea to have insurance, but also when you are obtaining new clients. Again, whether you're a cleaning company, an accounting firm, a grass cutting business, a roofer, whatever it may be, having insurance gives the client peace of mind and makes your company more attractive to new clients. The amount of clients that we have obtained that have said that they've had cleaners their whole lives, and they've never had a cleaner or a cleaning lady that has had insurance to protect the client's home is insane. And for anybody who follows us, obviously knows that our whole kind of mission in the company is to elevate the cleaning industry standards and to provide a company that has those standards. But it's very common that a lot of businesses and companies don't have insurance that is going to protect the client. So, a lot of people, especially cleaners who are in somebody's home, or service people, whatever it may be, if I was to go in to clean somebody's home and fall down their stairs, I could technically sue that homeowner. So us having our own insurance makes it appealing. 1, they're not going to get sued. And 2, they know if anything happens to their home that we're going to cover it through our insurance policy. So it's always been a good thing for us, and our clients have absolutely loved it. It has never done us wrong when obtaining new clients. And people are willing to pay a little bit more for that peace of mind. So that's just my little bit of tidbit info there.
I think that's a spectacular point, that last one, that you can actually turn this around and use it as a selling point to your customers. And I'm so glad that we ended on a more positive note. So thank you for doing it. It is absolutely true. But you do have to actively use it. But when you do use it, say, hey, we have insurance. I 100% agree with you that it takes something off the table and differentiates you from the rest of the people. So thanks for sharing that.
Of course. Yeah. And I hope all of this information is going to help the next, because like I said, you never know how important it is to have until you need it. And then it's too late. So please make sure you have insurances for your business, and the right ones. So talk to your broker or get a broker.
And with that, thanks for listening. We are new, so we need you to hit that subscribe button. It helps make sure that you don't miss any of our shows that get released, which sometimes we release and will release bonus shows. And it also helps us drive awareness to other people. So please hit subscribe. And yeah, we appreciate that. Is that all for today?
It is.
Bye, everyone.